So our team was called Charge Beacon. That was the name of our design. And my name is Sophie. And
my name is Shen.
And there were two other people on our team, but they couldn't make it today. So I'm right now Beth Ferguson's summer intern, and so we came together to the hackathon to try to expand some of the things that she's been working on, and we found some really good teammates to, I think, who make a really cool project. So our Soul Design Lab was founded and is directed by Beth Ferguson, and for the past 5 years she and her design partner have been designing solar charging stations. There's about 5 of them now that they've worked on around the country, one in Massachusetts, one at Stanford University, one at University of Texas in Austin, which is where she is right now, building and installing 2 solar charging stations that look like this. And the idea for these solar charging stations is to create off-the-grid energy and electricity sources where people can charge their cell phones, electric bikes, bicycles, laptops. So they've worked with a bunch of different designs, and most of them have been at colleges, so as an educational thing as well. So we're taking the idea of a solar charging station much further in this project, which was really fun for us. And the idea was to imagine if we had a network of solar charging stations across the city, for in this case San Francisco. And we were talking about mesh networks. This is the idea that we had come up with, is that these solar charging stations not only would be sources of energy and electricity for people when the main power source is out, you want to charge your cell phone so you can get in contact with someone else. This is really important. Also at night, there's LED lighting available on the station. So, like for Superstorm Sandy in New York City, at nighttime there were a lot of street lights that weren't working anymore, and it caused a lot of safety conditions, and people were feeling unsafe without light. So this would be solving one of those problems, and then also having a satellite mesh network that would be connected through these solar charging stations. And we wanted to focus on the idea of communication. So how do we create different apps? We, I guess, created 2 kind of, that would be connected to these solar charging stations, and to have them help people communicate with each other, to share resources, distribute and share resources, also share services, and things like that. So, yeah, solar charging stations can charge about 1,000 phones per day, and there's, depending on the design, you can have lots of different USB ports, so you can be charging multiple devices at once. And the batteries can hold, even if it was cloudy or something like that, the batteries can hold energy for up to 70 to 72 hours. So we were working together with the emergency program in San Francisco already set up SF72, and they've been trying to figure out how can we plan for San Francisco if there is a disaster and we don't have power for 72 hours. So this was one of the major solutions to that. Solar charging stations, this is some of the kiosks that we just built in our shop here in San Francisco, and these are the ones being installed right now in Texas. They hold all the batteries and the breakers and the transit, and yeah, so this is about how much you can charge: 1,000 cell phones, 50 iPads, 50 laptops, 5 electric bikes, and it comes with like all of these things that are aspect. And a huge thing is also the community gathering aspect. So these are stations that would ideally be in every kind of 10-block radius in San Francisco, and you'd know, like, oh, this is my station. It creates a gathering point. Hopefully people would know and get to know their neighbors better, because these stations would be there before a disaster as well. So they would know, like, oh, this is the spot I need to go to. This is where I can meet someone in case of an emergency. And also that people come together and they share stories with each other. They process the emotional aspects of being in a disaster and the trauma that comes with that. Like, oh, is this really happening? And being able to tell someone else what's been happening to you. And then if you don't have a phone, you can also come to the solar charging station and use the software there. So we created an interface that could be used on like an iPad or some kind of bigger interface, so that if you don't have a mobile device, that you could use that as well. So now Jen will talk about My Alert, which was our plan, another communication device.
So the idea behind the My Alert portion of the project was to lead people from wherever they are when a disaster happens to their meeting spot. And we had brainstormed early on during the hackathon a bunch of ideas and looked at different resources, including sf72.org, as well as another San Francisco site called alertsf.org. And because of the great work that the hackathon organizers did to get the word out, we had somebody who actually was working for SF72 that we happened to meet and chat with. And those conversations helped lead us to this idea of, okay, these sites are great, but it's missing some kind of glue, because the current SF72 site doesn't have the ability for you to create an account and specify the plan in digital form. They have PDFs you can download and print out yourself, but you couldn't save that information right now in that website. And meanwhile, the separate Alert SF site has an area where you can create an account, but it doesn't have any information on checklists or preparations or meeting locations or other kind of information that you should keep in mind as preparation for earthquake disasters and also other disasters as well. So we, in looking at these solutions, we were thinking, okay, let's combine some of these aspects of existing solutions and make it so that it's possible for users to go to SF72 or an equivalent, create an account on that platform, and using their email, phone number, and password, so as simple as possible in terms of information. And we would prefer that people give us a cell phone number, because then we can use SMS to send those alerts. And one of the things I learned from the hackathon was also that sometimes it's possible to get a heads up on an earthquake happening as much as 20 seconds or more based on the waves coming through. So I thought it would be really cool if there's a way for early warning system where people who are registered on a site can actually get an alert in advance of a disaster happening. As part of the account creation process, this is sort of a demo page that's live on the web as well. You can specify the emergency contacts and people, which is one of the best practice recommendations for disaster preparedness, and you can enter that information in the site. You can also create an out-of-area contact, and you can also list contacts of your doctor, veterinarian, other folks that are important in supporting your medical or health needs during disaster. And you can specify my meeting spots. This is where we can make that linkage between wherever you are when a disaster happens and where a central location might be that will give you a high quality source information where in discussions and meeting with other people who are facing this similar situation. So in terms of meeting spots, we actually updated and modified the SF72 recommendations to have a meeting spot near your home and also an alternate location to give you kind of more opportunities to think about where might be likely meeting spots, because one of the things, you never really know 100% what will happen when an unexpected disaster occurs. So it's good to kind of think through multiple places and discuss with your contacts multiple places where you might be able to meet up. And as part of that, we link out, which we'll show later, emergency locations, which we had also worked with Salvation Army contact Jamie on, that would also be likely places to locate these kiosks with these charge beacons. So we want to essentially give people suggestions for meeting spots that they could go to, and so they don't have to kind of just think of something from a random location. So we also, as part of this app experience, have a checklist of items, and as soon you probably won't, when there's not a disaster, you probably won't have all of these up front right now. We can do a survey. How many people already have a fire extinguisher that they know? But as part of going through the checklist, you can kind of save that information and kind of work on it over the course of maybe multiple user sessions. and then save that information to the app and come back to it and update it anytime you want. And in this screen, we show an example of an SMS system that takes advantage of other technology around potentially early detection or warning systems, and provides that alert information to the phone contact information that the user has signed up for. So the example is, earthquake detected, please take cover if there's even any seconds of warning of an earthquake happening. And after a while, it may prompt, is everything okay? And if it is, you can do one click if the internet is up, a way to alert all your contacts you have already put the effort to save. So at the time, it's going to be pretty confusing. So as easy as possible in terms of user experience, we can encourage the user to update their contacts. This is sort of the idea behind this link here. And if there's not internet, but there is still SMS connection, which is very possible, you could text back safe, and it will do the same thing as to quickly alert your private network of contacts as to your situation. So, and because there's already information in an account about your meeting spot locations, you can, at that moment when disaster happens, grab that information so it's easy for you to access, again, if SMS is up. So in this example, you can text plan, and it tells you the meeting spot locations that you had already brainstormed and saved when there wasn't a disaster. And then so right away, before your phone battery dies, you have that information, and you now know what your next step is to a safer location or to a location with power and with more resources available. So it kind of helps you go over the sort of hump of confusion in the initial first seconds or minutes. And I will lead back to Sophie to describe what happens when you reach the charge beacon and what kind of app experience might exist there.
So we wanted to take the communication aspect further of the alerts, but also then what happens in a disaster situation. How can you connect with other people? And so using the solar beacon as this satellite mesh network, we're hoping that there would still be Wi-Fi and some kind of network, at least if not to your mobile device, then through the beacons. So you could connect to other people in other neighborhoods, which may not necessarily be that far away. So Molly and I and Beth and really all of us, but we worked on the design for this app, and this is kind of an image of, say, all the stars are different beacons throughout the city. It tells you where you are using your geolocation, and then there's two options. You either need help or you're in good condition. You might, obviously not everyone's going to be in like 100% condition, but you have something that you could volunteer and help other people with. So then, say you need help, you come to this page, you give your phone number. We found out that the Red Cross uses phone number as a main identification form. So once you put your phone number in, that's getting you into the system, and that if someone needs to find you, you would already be located at this particular beacon. And then you put your name, and then what you need. These were just 3 options we thought might be, that there could be more options. There would also probably be an other option. But say you need medical supplies. So then you can either share this information, you can share where you are, but you can choose to not if that's for some reason an issue, or maybe you're moving, so it doesn't really help to share your location. But share your location so that someone could come to you if you can't move, and then also you can decide to either post your request publicly, or if you need, for example, medical attention, and you really need a doctor or a nurse, and it's something that's more emergency care, and you could just post it privately, to send it directly to the people who have volunteered and say, I'm a doctor and I can provide my services. So then it would go out directly to them via SMS probably. And so we thought it would be a really cool way of first using geolocation to get you onto a particular map, getting people to identify themselves and their phone number, and then if you need to track someone, find someone, you could find them that way. And then having the connectedness of the beacons be able to share these resources and distribute different services and whatnot. So just to give you a sense of where these beacons might be located, we were working together with the different partners that we outlined, but thinking about having them near transit hubs, places that people already gather normally, and then things like the Salvation Army or Glide or different people who are already providing these services. So to be near there to help empower them, give them energy sources that they may not necessarily have, things like that. And then also mostly public parks, because we would hope that these charging stations would be in green spaces. I was recently at a conference and learned that like in New Zealand there was an earthquake and everything was demolished except for the public parks. So that seems to be a safe space for something like this, which is a really small infrastructure that could be protected if it was located in a place like a public park. So these were different areas that we outlined that hopefully would be scattered throughout the city, and they would be connected via their mesh network. Here's another map of kind of centrally located areas, but hopefully there would be geographically spread out. And we're really excited about continuing this work and drawing from all the work that's already been done. So we were working a lot with SF72, especially since there was a representative there at the hackathon. And then there are all these other really cool groups who are already implementing great programs related to disaster relief and emergency preparedness. So yeah, that's pretty much it.